Hello. Good morning. Today's topic is back to work. Labor Day is supposed to be something on our calendars. Good morning. Back to work. My household took off like lightning this morning. Good morning. So I sense that Wednesday is about due time for people to start having a Monday. Good morning, Sean. Good to see you. Starting a Monday, like it was all staggered the first day of school. It's not cool. You can't. Everything's so blurry these days. But on the other hand, you have a very deep clarity coming out, like in color war even. That's happening on our streets. So you have this concept of going back to work, and interestingly, in the month of Elul, you're working in the field. It's a time where, although it corresponds to the 40 days that Moshiach went up to Mount Sinai and received the final luchos, the second set of tablets on Yom Kippur, which is like a matan Torah, it's like a shvuos of sorts. On Yom Kippur, we received the second set of tablets. Even if you just got that as a monetary basis for your nation, precious gems were found by the king. Even if it was just the most menial thing, you would celebrate Yom Kippur. But we have 40 days leading up to that, starting with the Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of Elul, till today, whatever day it is, 20th of Elul already. It's like you could hear the shofar blowing. So it's interesting because in this particular sikha that I want to get to, it mentions about the 40 days of Elul, or maybe I'm merging two together, but it's the same idea. It's the same time of year that I was saying this. That he talks about the 40 days of Avodas Hashem, serving God through these 40 days, we try and prepare for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it speaks about in terms of the Alter Rebbe's famous allegory of the king who's in the field. And we're supposed to go out to greet him. So that he's there to inspire us to want to go out to him. And we start this conversation in the month of Elul. It's about focusing on a relationship, but where does it take place? Specifically in the field. The king is coming out to your zone where you work to hang out with you there. And interestingly, the Rebbe says, Mit zayin kisei, simin lamalchus hamelach. He takes his royal throne, which is a symbol of his kingdom, vert eich dart balabas, and puts it in the field to show you that there too he rules. So the king is in the field where we work. Specifically, in the original context, it has to do with it's a time of without holidays in the month of Elul, where we start Ani Liadi v'dei dili Rosh Tevis Elul, spells this word Elul, the month of Elul that we're in now. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. It starts in the month of Elul, and there happens to be no holidays in this month, peculiarly. Because we're leading up to this grand month of holidays in Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and the whole shebang. Simchas Torah, everything's up. But specifically the first 10 days of Tishrei are included in this acronym for I am to my beloved, my beloved is to be, spelling the month of Elul. So, the month of Elul, no holidays. Why? It's a time of work. The month of Rosh Hashanah, of Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, that represents we follow the king back to his palace from the fields. Now we're in the palace with him, and hopefully he'll welcome us in the Chedrei Chadarim, the most intimate chamber of the king we're alone with in Yom Kippur. In Ne'ilah, we're locked in. And in Sukkot, it's the embrace revealed in a less spiritual way, more celebratory in the physical sense. So, the main difference between Elul and Tishrei, Elul is a time of work. We go back to work. Even in Labor Day works perfectly with it. They didn't do it in the middle of hockey season. Or maybe it is the middle. I don't even know. Good morning. So you have this idea of Elul all about going to work. So what are we going to work on? The spiritual sense on yourself, but where? Where are we working on ourselves? What aspect of ourself do we work on? It's specifically when we're in the field. Whatever we could accomplish when we're in our zone where we typically reside. 6 days you shall work. On the 7th day you shall rest. There's 6 whole days devoted to work. Isn't that what we're all about? 6,000 years of work, and then you have an Elf Hashvi, the 7th millennium, which is supposed to be, I can't even describe in the same sentence of anything else, because no one knows anything about that. If you could find me a source of what Elf Hashvi is, I'd like to see that. The 7th millennium, what is it supposed to be like? Atoms freaking out or something like that? How are we supposed to understand it? I think the idea is it's beyond the concept of Aveda, so it's not relevant. It's simply not relevant. It's not meant to even inspire you. You're not supposed to be inspired by this idea of putting your feet up on a lawn chair forevermore. The idea is that you're here to work. I'm created to serve my master. I'm here to work. It's all about Kabbalah Sale. So what does that represent and why that's our specific venue of preparing for the holy days when we go into the palace of the king, is specifically in the field? Okay, so that's where I'm headed. Because the Rebbe in the Sikha here, that's in Tafshin Nun, it's one of the last Sikhas we had from the Rebbe. Well, it's really the first one preceding Rosh Hashanah. I mean, in the later years, the Rebbe didn't have this parsha prior to Rosh Hashanah, and therefore, I thought it would be cooler to see something that's sort of more reflective of the time we're in. So this is like the last teaching, and this is my favorite one, because this is where the Rebbe says, what is God? And what does it mean, V'dei Li? He's going to shine back on me in the second half of the V'dei Li. The Li, okay, it's actually 1 year there. The Rebbe interestingly points out, how do we get the 40 days of Elul? They're seen in Ani V'dei Li. Okay, actually both have. You have in the first section 2 yods, which is 20. And then another 2, you have a Deidili, and God is to me, you have another 20. Interestingly, that sort of puts the latter 10 days of Elul, which we're in now, with the first 10 days of Tishrei, in the second set, V'deidili. It's supposed to be, after Chai Elul, you're ready for V'deidili, God sort of reaching out to us in response. Like we've already inspired ourselves, now God's sort of keeping it going for us. And I'm going to read one paragraph this is my favorite paragraph in anything I've ever read, ever. Why? Because it gave me the ultimate insight into what we have to do now, which is we have to, when someone's not well, God forbid, you add a name. I think Chaim David Nata. Oh no, I'm not sure if Chaim, my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Vichner, Alav Shalom, I'm not sure if the name Chaim was added. I'm pretty sure it was, but I'm not positive. So people add a name to add Chayas. Chaim is a typical name that people add to add Chayas. I say, so God is the Rebbe said as a prophecy that Moshiach's now. So obviously, there's some kind of empowerment that God has to assume to actually do this job. So we have to add a new name. This is just a cute thought. To God. And I'm saying God, the word God is not really appropriate. We should have something more uniquely Jewish. So I say, what's uniquely Jewish? Bestie. It's about a celebration of our truest close relationship with the one who's creating us right now. So I want to read one paragraph, and I hope you like it as much as me. V'deidili, what does it mean, the second half of this acronym? Anila Deidi to my beloved, and V'deidili, and God is to me, Der Eibishter is Deidi. God is the beloved. Unplucked, Zayin Liv Shav Zu Iden. He reveals his love to the Jewish people. Nar Yisrael Ve'aveyu. And then he quotes this mimer that's described by this verse that says, the Jewish people is a lad, and I love him. So there's an incredible mimer. I spent a lot of time on it in 666, the Rebbe Rishab's Tafresh Samach Vav, 666. So there it explains how when you want to cheer someone up, you bring him a child. It doesn't even have to be his child. Bring him any child, and a child, good morning, is going to make him happy. So that's why he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to have any merit. You have to see character somewhere hidden within him. That's why God sees our potential. We're a youth in his eyes. Biz in an Eifen as V'deidi werd in ganzen Eberge geben kiviachel zu li. And we say, "V'daidili God, but my beloved is to me, bestie is to me," means that you have to recognize that God is entirely given over, as it were, to me, to Yederid, to every Jew, azoyas Yederid, veist bepashtus, as der Eibishter is sein grester and bester gute Freund. To the extent that every Jew simply knows that God is his greatest and best good friend. So that's such a ridiculously long term. I say just shorten it to bestie. And it has that ridiculous type of, wow, I'm so close to person. I just put my arm, like my two little kids, they do that. When he's not beating him up, or he's not giving a headlock, he's like embracing him really tough. Thanks from Queen Esther. Queen Esther, I appreciate that. It's all about God concealing his face and revealing it. So here it's the revealing it side of that equation. It's not the Purim where you have to unravel it. It's supposed to be a way that God is, you totally understand that he's bestie. Uba'if and Galui. And the Rabbi goes on to say exactly that. In a revealed way. It's not the Esther, the concealment. Haster, aster, espanai. But kel havayu vayar lanu. God is to us and illuminates to us. And interestingly, the Rebbe points out that the word Kael here, Aleph Lamed, for God's name, is the first two letters of the month of Elul. And that, in fact, and this name of God is the first of the 13 attributes of compassion. Umakeru uklalusam. And it is its source and includes them all, as it says in Likutei Torah. So the word Kael, the name of God, called Kael, which would probably represent, I translate personally. I can't put you on video right now because I just don't have time. But if you want to prep me in advance for an interview or something, then I would really think that's cool. But I have to know in advance because I just don't have time this morning. It just seems like everyone's rushing off in this whirlwind of going to work. So I had to speak about that. And I have a bit more to say before I can just relax. So the name Kael, I would translate it as bestie. Kael is about how he's the source and aggregate expression of all compassion in the world. The 13 tufts of God's beard, kaviyachal. God is said to have a beard of 13 tufts, representing these 13 attributes of mercy, which are reflected in the 13 manners by which we derive Torah teachings, the 13 principles. Because they're also an expression of compassion. If you have the light of Torah, then you actually know not to smash someone's cups when they're eating, like people are doing these days with those bullhorns. Holding a bullhorn, disturbing people and thinking that that's a revolution. That's a revolution of idiocy that we allow that to happen. And I don't think that they should be taken out with batons either. I would give them all the drugs they want and tell them to go to an island somewhere and have a good time. That's what I would do personally. And I actually mean that, but I don't mean it so graphically. I mean it more. I am actually starting to believe in guaranteed income. Just pay people to have a good life and don't bug me. Go to yourself. Go to your own cities, wherever you want to go, we'll give it to you, and just party and kill yourselves. And that's fine, but just don't bother anyone else. I think that's a really great idea. I have no problem with that whatsoever. They can make their own system. You give them their semi-autonomy. Whoever wants to separate and burn the flag of the place who keeps them protected, do they have any concept of history whatsoever to be able to do such things? And I'm not even conservative anymore. I've become liberal, but liberal in the sense that I think that you have to have compassion on people, but not allow yourself to be harmed by them. That's where you draw the line. Don't hurt me, but yeah, have everything you want. There's enough to go around. You can have all the Nikes you want, but that's it. We'll leave it at Nikes. Don't, if you want to run for election and make new tax laws, do that. Okay, I don't want to get political because I'm not a political guy, but it makes me angry to see the world is so chaotic. There's no reason for it at all. So there's a force called Kel or Besti, Kel Havaya. God's name, his essential name. Havaya is expressing of Kel, which means he's revealed. When you see that the creator himself is revealed to you, it's a kind of meaningful life, and it doesn't look like the horror show that you see on the screen. That's all people are fascinated with is actual torture. I think there is a quota of how many minutes of each movie has to be devoted to torture, of all things. The most horrific thing now is completely normal for people to contemplate because it's exposed before us. So what are we talking about? What type of exposed? We're talking about Besti himself exposed to us. Biz in an eifin fun li beperusha kol makom shneimar li eina zaznu l'mkayme. To the extent that we say v'daydili, God is to me. When it says li, it says the sages teach that. And it's a Vayikra Rabbah in the Medrash. It says, whenever it says li to me, it means something that never moves ever. It's permanent. The Libshab bleibt an ewiger Zustand as an ewiger zu Mambung. I can't even say these words, Yiddish words this morning. Von dem Eibishten mitten in. It's the ultimate bond and connection of God to the Jewish people that never vacillates. It never, even when things look rough, God forbid. It's always underlying everything is this love of God to the Jewish people, and should be revealed is what we're saying is the force of the Daidili. The second, we're in this stage now, the two Yuds. I don't know why the Rebbe doesn't say that. I'm sure he does in somewhere, because I don't think I came up with that just now. That includes the last 10 days of Elul. Okay, so I want to take you, that was just a part that I couldn't resist saying, but now that wasn't actually the main point. The main point I want to talk about is a question that the Rebbe brings here, which he says, what does it mean the king is in the field? It's a complete oxymoron to say the king is in the field. Because a king is, if you want to talk about adir b'tachteinim, the whole thing of representing the God coming into the field, he has to be the person that we're talking about here, it's Besti, God himself, that when he comes in, he wants to be Lagani, he wants to go into a garden, a type of field as a garden, Laganuni, to his private chamber. The place where God originally resided was in the Garden of Eden, which was in this physical world. He's just coming back here. So, how do we call that a dwelling place, a dira, in a tachtainim, in the lowest realm, when the idea of a dwelling place is much more represented by a dwelling itself, not a field? So, if you're going to have a dira, a king would want to be in a palace. So what's the significance of the fact that he's in the field, especially in terms of that being expressive of the ultimate dwelling place in the lower realm? Because it's not where the whole idea is that it should be a dwelling. And a dwelling is where you feel most at home. Yes, the king takes his throne out into the field, but still, how do we answer this idea? Like, in what sense is his natural place to be in the palace, yet his core is in the field with us, in the garden? So the Rebbe deals with that question here. First he asks at length, but he also references an earlier sequel from Parsha Shaping that he said the same idea. He's speaking about, Elul was starting, so Anila Deidi B'Deidi, and he asks the same question in the conjunction with that. So, I'm going to take you back to that, and we're going to go through that pretty quick, but it has this idea of the Lamed Tes Malachis, the 39 forbidden labors during the Shabbos, which is represented in general with the latter part of the Daidi Li stage, the Shabbos, not the Elul, which doesn't have holidays except from Shabbos itself. But you have the time, the majority of Elul is devoted to working regularly in the field, and so too, 6 days you shall work, and only 1 day you rest. So the majority of our experience is one of working. So the Rebbe is Medayak. It says, Rosh Hashanah, okay, he quotes the idea that the 40 days of Elul represent the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah, the second tablets. And therefore, you would think that this time would be reflected by learning Torah, because it's all about the time where Moshe was learning Torah or receiving these tablets, which were engraved with the essence of the Torah, the Ten Commandments. So why then in Elul, these 40 days are represented with the Jews being in the field and the king being in the field and us trying to impress him there? So the Rebbe gives a drush about what I was saying before, and I was just giving you a bit of context about how it says, the major principles of forbidden labors are learned from labors defined by the Torah. And the Torah speaks about 40 different types of labors. Lama nasru b'Shabbos rak lamed tes malachas. It says malacha 40 times in the Torah. It says work 40 times. I think it actually means in quotation marks. I'm not sure. Lama nasru Shabbos rak lamed tes malachas. So therefore, why are there 39 forbidden labors? And the Chachamim say it's arboim chaser achas. There are 40 labors lacking one or minus one. Lacking one is probably more accurate, because we're going to see the drush that the Rebbe gives it. It's fascinating. Why would you lose out on one if there's 40 times it mentions malacha? Lama mari chatana lektev arbaim chaser achas ve'eno kaisa bekitzer. Why did he say 40 minus 1? He should have just said shleishim v'teisha, 39, like you would speak to a person. So why would is that the way this teaching by the sages is taught? V'abir b'zeh, the explanation is this: b'Shabbos nesurak lamed tes malachas de'uvdim nechel. There are only 39 forbidden labors that are sort of not Shabbos oriented. Malach tacha, your labors. They're supposed to represent things we need to, we'll see, it has to do with the malachas hamishkan, avedis hamishkan. That these were specific labors that were forbidden because they were meant to be done on the Mishkan and they didn't work on Shabbos to do it. So therefore, we're forbidden on Shabbos. We learn from that forevermore. And there's 39 different labors that they did to build a Mishkan. So every one represents, these 39 different types of labors represents these avos malachis, the general fathers of all the different types of labor. So it's described, why didn't he just say 39? Avol yesh malacha achas, because there's a 40th type of labor. Hamalacha harboyim, the 40th one in fact. Shemuteres b'Shabbos malachas shemayim. That's actually permitted on Shabbos. You work on Shabbos. So now we're in this latter part of the V'dei Dili. It's like the month of Tishrei that we're approaching in some senses. In that the second 2 yuds of V'dei Dili has 2 yuds, the 20 days of the 40 days leading up to Yom Kippur, which now we're within. And you have this aspect of it being something to do with Melechas Shemayim also. That it has to do with the whole month of Tishrei. It's like a Shabbos. It's a full jam-packed with holidays. So there's one that's not mentioned, the 40th one that is not corresponding to a labor, because that's representing the labor of Shabbos, which is not a forbidden labor. And that's why it says -1, because the ultimate point of your 39 labors that you do during the week, because it's meant to reveal where otherwise it was chaser achas, it was lacking, it was missing one. So you do all that for the point of you work. Yes, people who have those checklists in front of their eyes all the time, checking things off, there is a point to that one day you probably will want to relax and you won't know what to do with yourself. It's true. They won't know what to do. But anyways, we're going to learn here that it's ein lecha eine gadol mizeh. There's nothing better that when you've done all your work and now you can just party or just relax, whatever your thing is. Ein lecha eine gadol mizeh. There's no pleasure greater than that. The Alter Rebbe Alter Rebbe brings us in the Shulchan Aruch as when you accept that all your work is done. What do you mean all your work is done? You have another week of work coming up, and infinite weeks after that, 120 years worth at least. So why do you? It's an actual avodah. You're supposed to work on yourself. So the Malach Shabbos. There's a type of labor that you do on Shabbos to do Shabbos. That you forget about the fact that you just enjoy the fact that you did a week's work. Now there's meant to be a sabbatical. So enjoy that sabbatical, and that's Malach Shemayim, that you're meant to not have to just work. It says in the future to come, we're not going to, plow our fields and all that. I think I have some source lined up for that. And everyone's going to do it for us. Where did I see that? That's really cool. Okay, there's some really cool things that we got to get to here. We got to do it in some type of order. I know I bounce around a little bit more than people like. I know because I've been told. But it's the more ADD type of approach, maybe. Because everyone in this household, at least, like, if they're not ADD, they're sort of saying, well, it's cool that I'm going to pretend that I am. Or they're rejected completely. There's no such thing. It's a whole thing. Okay. So I want to read a little bit more there and then do some very cool notes here. And then I'm going to paraphrase the ending, I think. Yeah, there's some really cool things. I might have to do a part 2. Oh, I want to do one footnote just now as a sort of segue. The sages teach, Harbu Asa, the Rebbe Yishmael, Hinhag Behem, Minhag Derech Eretz. A lot of people tried to do Derech Eretz and Fa'al Sabiyadam. They were going to make a living and learn Torah when they could. That's Rabbi Yishmael's approach. The Tana Rabbi Yishmael. Fa'al Sabiyadam, and they succeeded. You could work. 6 days you're supposed to work anyways, right? 7th day you're supposed to rest. So they work and then they learn Torah, which is analogous to Shabbos. Kirat Shbi, Shitarasim Naslim. However, some people labor just in Torah, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Ba'amrei Efshar Adam Chayrash. He's saying, is it possible that someone could plow v'zereya teramate tehei aleh, and he's going to sow seeds? He's going to plow the field and sow seeds. What's going to be of Torah? Elo malachta nasis alidei acherim. Okay, this is what I was looking for before. That their work will be done by someone else. People will take care of your field for you if you succeed in the Ashbi's approach, which very few did. V'loi al sabiyadan. Many people tried and they did not succeed, as it says in Brachos Lamed Hey Beis, Amud Beis. So the approach of Rabbi Shmuel of making a living, going to work, and learning Torah when you can is the more likely success story than the Rashbi's approach. At least that's what the Gemara says in the simple meaning. I'm sure we could darshan that somehow to flip it around. So the Rebbe puts this in context of Avodas Hashem. Hamalachas arboim malachas shemayim. When you have the 40 labors and you include the serving God on malachas shemayim, the heavenly labors of Shabbos, al derech kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shemayim. That you approach that in a way of recognizing that everything has to be for the sake of heaven. So all the 39 malachas that you do during the week also is connected and are elevated through the 40th labor, which seems to include them all, and the one that brings the unity of God in all the other ones. So your Shabbos gives meaning to, like they had a sabbatical, or it's at least mentions sabbatical before the 6 years of the land being worked, and then a fallow sabbatical year. Is fallow a word? To leave the land fallow, not planted. And then it's revealed when the work of heaven is to recognize that God created everything for His glory. Meaning to say that all one's interests only have to do with bringing honor to heaven. or to bestie. Which is alluded to the fact that you're only punishable for doing a forbidden labor on the Sabbath if that was a labor defined by the work that was done to build the sanctuary, the Mishkan, in the desert. And that's why they get the number 39, as it says in that phrase that we've been saying. This teaches us that there's a connection between the labors that you do during the week and building the Mishkan. There's 39 forbidden labors that you can do during the week, but not on Shabbos, and the fact that those pertain specifically to the building of the Mishkan, because that's the idea of bringing God to be a Mishkan within our life. He should have a dwelling place amongst us. He should dwell b'seicham, within us. Meaning that the work that you do within the world, in the 39 labors of the weekday, that is to make for God a dwelling place in the lower realm. Just like the way that the Shechina fills the Mishkan. Okay, I want to just do one note here that's derived here, and then I might want to paraphrase some of it. She'arba'im malachas keneged malachas shebetera arba'im chaser achas shemalachas deuvdim lechel lehem keneged hamalachas shebetera she'al yadim nimshach gili al kus ba'ilin kamei al yidei mishkan v'mikdash. So the fact that the Torah is the defining roster of these 39 labors tells you that Torah is the key to revealing the fact that the 39 prohibited labors that you are allowed to do during the week, and you do them all with the intent of building a Mishkan for God, teaches you that Torah is the way to reveal that fact. And that's why our sages teach, Mishachara Beis Hamikdash Ein Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'elamei Ela Daled Amos Shel Halacha. Since the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy One, the Almighty, has no space in the world He has nothing in the world save the 4 cubits of halacha. The 4 cubits is telling you when a man stretches out his arms, that's what he's supposed to reach. It's about 6 feet. So I guess they had short arms. Okay. So the means to reveal this fact of that you're building a sanctuary for God with your 39 things that you do during the week, which is basically what you do most of your time, the power to do that is the depth of your understanding, which is derived from Torah. You bring that depth and meaning into the 39 things, and then it's not, you're just watching 39 hours on your clock. You just invented some more. But totally the opposite, rather, everything has purpose, and it's all connected to Shabbos. And that's in fact, that Mishum Eineg Shabbos Ein Lecha Eineg Gadol Mazeh. There's nothing greater. Shenira Be'einav Ki'ilu Kol Malachtei Asui. A person is supposed to see on Shabbos that as if all his work's already done, and there's no greater pleasure than that. And as the Rebbe says, this is al derech hatainig do'elam haba, similar to the pleasure of the world to come. Shal zeh amru chazal, yafa sha'achas, shal keras ruach be'elam haba. You can't compare a moment of gratification that's achieved in the world to come, mekol chaya ha'olam hazeh, from all the life's experience in this world, all the pleasures you can have in this world, one moment in heaven is greater than all that. It's even greater. One second. So that's telling you what the pleasure that you should have on Shabbos is recognizing that this is something that's actually greater than all the pleasures of this world, because it's analogous to the sabbatical of life that will be in Olam Haba. Elagam b'kol mizeh shekol malachtecha asuya v'yiser mizeh ad she'ein lecha ein gadol mizeh. So we're saying there's no greater pleasure than seeing that your work is all done. So in what sense do we focus on 6 days of work? And we have this whole idea, we're in the field for Elul. Okay, so in this paragraph, the Rebbe defines the answer. I might skip a bit. The Rebbe fleshes it out more and gives different explanations of relating it to Elul. Okay, I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs and we'll have to call it a day, I think. Or maybe we'll try and keep it at 3 too. As we said above, that the whole purpose of creation was to make a dwelling place for Hashem in the physical, the lowest realm. That's completed specifically in the field. Move on. So in other words, in Elul is represented the time when in the field when we're doing just our regular thing. So that is actually the 6 days we spend most of our time doing our regular thing. Shigam mailas hasad is Shabbos nishlemes hakavana de klalos aveda. No, Sheba nishlemes hakavana de klalos aveda. That teaches you that the special virtue of the field, which allows the supernal intent to be fulfilled, to represents the lowest realm where you are involved with 39 forbidden labors. Mudgeshes b'chaydish Elul. This is emphasized in the month of Elul. Hakol kol nyanu aveda, which includes within it all aspects of divine service. How much more so does this apply to the general purpose of our whole aveda, our whole service of God, should be expressed in this month that has to do with serving God. But then we're going to have this question. And this is the explanation of the analogy of the king being in the field. It's not just to tell you that the king's there to inspire you to go out to greet him and therefore go out of the wilderness that you found yourself in and at least make it to the field and be present in the workplace. At least be there. Then you could follow the king back to his palace. But it's not just to inspire you to go out of the wilderness, to be there and to be where the king is. He's in the field. He's not in the wilderness there. The wilderness, that is Pesach. That's a one-time thing. He goes in Erev Haaretz and schleps us out. They're also a daily representation of that, which is why we speak about it so much in Daven. So the teichen, so it's not just to inspire you to go out. The king's not in the field just for that reason, but the entire purpose of all your efforts, which is to reveal the king in the field, because that's the most of the time you're in the field in life. So you're spending most of your time to bring him there, and especially in Elul. Which means that even the field, which is the lowest possible place, that too should be the place of the dwelling of the king. And he brings his throne there too, and his ottoman. In addition to the way he is in his royal palace, in a way that's much greater, because when the king's even in his palace, you would think that that's a place he can be most revealed, but it is here, it's saying he's wearing his royal garments and his crown. And therefore it emphasizes him expressing his royal dignity, as opposed to what? Whereas when he's revealed in the field, he is skalos atzmusa shalamelech. This reveals the essence of the king, which is above any representations of dignity that Hashem allows himself to take on when he's said to be in his palace. Rather, when he's in the field, that's his very essence, which goes against what we just said. That doesn't seem to answer the question. We say the whole idea of a dira is that you could reveal yourself with all of your essence there. So why would you have to be in a field to do that? You should do that in the palace. I guess the idea is that since he's a king and that is a place of dignity for the king, he could really only be going out to the people in their realm. This reminds me of an argument I had with a friend, Benny Traurig. He says, what's the main point? Is it the days of the week or Shabbos? And this is a source for it. I never appreciated that he had a source, because it seems obvious that it's all about the sabbatical of history is what we're all awaiting. And there's no tiny greater than that. But here we're saying, specifically in the field, is this Skalas Atzmos. It tells you to look up Likkutei Sichos Chelik Daled, which is the classic. And I should know exactly what it says there in advance, but I'd have to peek. I've actually translated a few times, like I've spent some time, I should know, but it's been a long time. He has Skalas Melech Besadeh B'Shvil Avedas Hasadeh Hamata Haveda Anshe Hasadeh B'Inyan Hasadeh Lamates Melachas De'Uvdin Nechel She'Yidei Oisim Hasadeh Der Le'Yisparach. Okay, we have a sukkah season. We're out in the field basically on sukkahs. We have a verse about the Melech Besada. He says Melech Lesada. It's a verse in Kahelas. The advantage of the earth, of the land, in everything is Melech Lesada Nevad. The field is worked for the king. Yisran Avedis Haaretz B'chol Davarhu. So the advantage of every, this is the explanation of it, the advantage, and it's quoting, I'm not sure what. The advantage of Avedis Haaretz, of working the land, B'chol Davarhu, and everything is, Afilu HaMelech She'en L'maylu Menu, Navad L'Sadeh Ba'avur Tzarechai, Ki Mimenu, Nasadeh Mechayei Say. So a field has an advantage in that it produces something. The palace has to be supplied. If you're going to have 20, 30,000 people at your table, Shlomo Melech who wrote Kahelas, then you're going to have a field to provide for that. Because the advantage of the service on the earth, and to the extent that we say that it's the earth in the lowest possible sense of what it could mean, is so great. The advantage, the virtue of it is so great that even the king is, as it were, meshubad, dependent upon the sadeh. And this is Manis Friedman's thing. So I found two sources today that I didn't have sources for. Manis Friedman said, God needs you. This is a source for it. He probably has a more basic source than Tanya, but I had some debate with him about that, or his son. Kach, kol kach ad shefilu hamelech meshubad kiviyachol l'sadeh. God is kiviyachol, as it were, dependent upon the field for his sustenance, v'lanshe hasadeh, as it were. Kiviyachol, here it's in parentheses. Did he mean the guy who says he wants to throw Manis Friedman out the window? Did he mean it kiviyachol also? Maybe Manis Friedman meant it kiviyachol. So maybe you meant it. I should malamed schus. You meant it kiviyachol, as it were, to throw him out of the window. He means he's going to kiss him and slap him on the thigh. Give him a Charlie horse. I don't know what he means to throw him out the window. That's very BL, whatever. BS. Rioting matters. Forget about even trying to have a conversation. Just riot. I'm sure every newspaper would be happy to say, I'm going to get on the pulpit and make a speech. That's just as interesting, I would think, as smashing windows. So he's also the people that work the field. He's dependent on it, kaviyachol, because through the service of the people that work the field, that's what provides for the king to live. He wants to live. Okay, here's the way you could say it. He wants to live in the palace. But he comes out to the field to see the people that he's dependent on. He's not this capitalist guy that looks down on his workers, but rather the capitalist guy, maybe. I mean, I much prefer capitalism than its alternatives. I think you should have meritocracy and not just the guy with the nicest chup gets to be on the throne. But something more teichendik, something more substantial. So he wants to, it sounds like, this is the way I'm getting it. He's dependent on the field, so once in a while, or 6 days of the week, why isn't he there more than 1 month? 6 days a week, we're working 6 days. I guess the king does his king things, and we're dependent on that too. We have to have an infrastructure to be able to work the field, to have a job that the king can benefit from, so he too can have his produce to make a big party. So God desired, he has a taiva, to have a dwelling place in the lower world. The taiva, k'vyachol, zu nismala, v'nishlamas al yedei v'dasim shatachteinim b'sada davka. I'm just writing manis here in big letters. But he adds k'vyachol. So I think manis k'vyachol out the window. V'taiva k'vyachol zu nismala, v'nishlamas, it's fulfilled and satisfied or filled al yedei v'dasim through the service shatachteinim of you and me. Beside up specifically in the field. That is an awesome meshubad. I'm underlining meshubad. That is really cool. So the labor, God is meshubad. Shibud malchus bilvad. Okay, so we're going to have to do more, I think. Oh, there's a very cool part about the crowning of the king here. Really cool. Maybe I could do that tomorrow. This is about blowing the shofar before kings, which is a very cool idea. And the Haftaras HaMelech, the coronation. Maybe tomorrow we'll do coronation. But I don't know. Do you guys relate to the idea of a coronation? I don't know if it's an image that modern people relate to. Or did Lord of the Rings and all that make it resurrect that feeling? Because when I just see the royal families, to me, it's like a complete joke. It's worse than so. I'd rather see soap opera. Because soap opera has some thought behind it. And this is just completely make a trinket out of your representatives. They become a trinket or someone to make $5 off of, to buy their picture or something like that. That's the whole idea of kingship nowadays. It's a completely ridiculous concept. It's like buying a Leaning Tower of Pisa figure and put it on your dashboard. It's about the equivalent. I meant to say the Eiffel Tower, really, but the same idea. Okay, I'm going to run off, see if I can catch a minion. And I hope that was inspired you to run off to work too. Malachas Shemaim. There's a labor of heaven also. Then it's everything you're doing is towards one goal. But you recognize that while you're doing this goal, so even in the field, you're saying this is something that even the king recognizes. When I'm in the field, he's there too. The rest of the time during the year, okay, I gave one explanation. You depend on him too, so he has to work in the palace, putting on his royal crown. Don't you want the rest of the world to respect your leader more so than the puppets that of today's leadership roster? I mean, it's completely ridiculous to a thinking person. And who's that? Cardi B or something like that? I just don't know these personalities. But I just love what that. Okay, I gotta let someone in. Oh no, just someone to get to packages. Or to sit on my front step, it looks like. Okay, everyone have a great day. Take care.